Climate change. I know that you've said that climate might be changing, but there's no convincing evidence changes are man-made. But multiple studies, as you know, Senator, in peer-reviewed scientific journals show that at least 97% of climate scientists agree that climate warming trends over the past century are very likely due to human activities. Now, the Pope, in his first major encyclical, wrote, "Humanity is called to recognize the need for changes of lifestyle, production, and consumption in order to combat this warming, or at least the human causes which produce or aggravate it." So do all those scientists and the Pope have it wrong in your view?
You know, let me start with you suggested something that I'd said, and that's not actually a quote I've said. So that
Okay,
is not something accurately attributed
all
to
right,
me.
then why don't you tell us your position?
And I'll mention that the stat about the 97% of scientists is based on one discredited study. Let me tell you what my view is.
NASA has quoted that study, I know that.
And one of the sad things under President Obama is NASA has been politicized and has lost its core focus on space, instead pushing a partisan agenda.
Let's get back to climate change.
Well, I'm happy to. And, you know, my view on this and everything else is that we should follow the evidence and the science and the data. You know, I'm the chairman of the Science and Space Committee of the Senate Commerce Committee. And I'm also the child of two mathematicians. Both my parents are mathematicians. My dad was a geophysicist for many, many years. And the problem with this debate is it is driven principally by people with partisan agendas in Washington that are disconnected from the science and the data.
What about the Pope?
And so let me talk about what the science and the data show. Satellite data show for the last 17 years, there has been no significant recorded warming. None. Now, that's a real problem because the whole basis of global warming alarmism was based on computer models that showed there was going to be significant warming. And the problem is the satellites, when they're measuring the temperature, it's not happening. And, you know, it's interesting if you step back and look at it with some historical perspective. You and I both remember in the 1970s when there was a big push towards global cooling. We were told there was going to be a new ice age. And what happened, there were politicians who said the solution to global cooling was increased government control of the environment, of the economy, of energy in our lives. Well, the data didn't back that up. And so then the theory changed from global cooling to global warming. And interestingly enough, the solution was the same: more government control of the economy and our lives. But then the data didn't back that up. It wasn't, in fact, warming. So now it has changed into what is the perfect political pseudoscientific theory, which is climate change. Now listen, as the son of two scientists, the scientific method is you begin with a hypothesis, and then you test that hypothesis with evidence. You try to prove, is it true or false? Climate change is a perfect political theory because it can never be disproven. Whether it gets hot or cold, whether it gets wet or dry, no matter how it changes, it's always proven right. And the solution, yet again, is more and more government control of the economy in our lives. And I'll tell you who's being hurt.
So you don't think anything should be done?
I think this is driven by politicians that want more control over our lives.
But you think that the issue doesn't exist and should be ignored?
I'm
just trying to understand your position on it.
I think the data is driven by politicians who have always supported more government control. And let me tell you who's being hurt on this. You know, it's interesting. The Democrats have made a very interesting political decision in the last few years. Barack Obama and Harry Reid and Hillary Clinton have chosen between two traditional favored children of the Democratic Party. They've chosen to go with the money from California environmentalist billionaires instead of the jobs of union members. Millions of union members are finding their jobs taken away. And I'll tell you what, I intend in this campaign to make a hard run. I think Republicans ought to be fighting for those union members because the Democratic Party has abandoned union members. The union bosses are going to stay with the Democratic Party in all likelihood, but our campaign is millions of hardworking men and women who want to work, who want to, you know, energy gives us the opportunity to bring manufacturing, heavy manufacturing, the steel industry back to America. And the Democratic Party is more interested in money than they are interested in jobs.
So basically, I'm just trying to understand your position on climate change. You think that it is unproven, that it's happening, and that nothing should be done as a result. And you still didn't really give me your opinion about the Pope's encyclical.
Listen, I respect the Pope a great deal. He is a great theologian, and he has been speaking with great power, moving people to rediscover their faith. I commend him for that. In the world of public policy, I think we should follow the facts and the data. And you know, I will note, getting back...
So he should have made the statements he made in the encyclical, in your view?
I think from the public policy perspective, we should follow the facts. And you know, it's interesting. If you ask the American people, should a single mom who's working hard to feed her kids, you know what's happened in the last 6.5 years under the Obama administration? The rich have gotten richer. The top 1%, the millionaires and billionaires, the president always demagogues, today earn a higher share of our income than any year since 1928. The people who have been hammered are young people, Hispanics, African Americans, single moms. The people who've been hurt are people like my dad. And let's take a minute in the book to talk...
So what does that have to do with global warming? I'm sorry, are you saying that...